Can you read the clock all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give me about 30 seconds and then start.
Gotcha.
So when it's straight up.
Got it. Revolutionary greetings and tap. My name is Kwame Benta, and I'd like to welcome you to Word from the Point, the remix. We have been doing this program for quite a while, but we haven't been on the local cable access for quite a while. We used to do this show back in the 90s when we was located at a different location. So I was supposed to have a guest here today, but my guest, I don't know what happened. They didn't show up. But for those who do not know who I am, my name is Kwame Benta, and I am a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities Leagues, an organization / government founded by the Right Excellent Marcus Messiah Garvey that many people in the United States and elsewhere probably never heard of, because they don't want you to know about him, basically, because of what he came to do. Okay, so last week, I was not last week, 2 weeks ago, because we wasn't here last week. We did a show on health and wellness. My wife, Sheila Benter, was my co-host, but she's out of town for a few weeks down in Atlanta, Georgia, doing some work and taking some time to spend some time with some of her business partners and associates, because next weekend down in Atlanta, we're going to have an event called Let's Go Weekend. Let's Go Weekend was founded by Dr. Ty Best, who lives in Newport News, Virginia here. And this is going to be Let's Go Weekend Remix on the 24th and 25th of this month down in Atlanta. Now, if you can get there on Friday, you can guests, all guests are welcome at no cost on Friday, on the 24th. Okay, and while I'm making announcements, I may as well also make an announcement that this Saturday, right here at the main library in Richmond, Virginia, at 3 o'clock, that's 101 East Franklin Street, Richmond, Virginia, we're going to have a wealth movement presentation, okay? And so we want to invite you to come out and learn how you can prepare for what's really going on in this economic system that's collapsing right before our eyes. You know, a lot of people aren't aware of it, but it's happening. It's not much they can do about it. So last week we made a list of books, and we share this with you, and because we want to encourage people to read so that we can educate ourselves, you know, because knowledge is the key. All right. So, and those books that we named last week were The Philosophy Opinions of Marcus Garvey by Amy Joss Garvey, Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, The Creature from Jekyll Island by Edward Griffin, The Reckoning by Randall Robinson, Vanguard, The Advanced Attachment of the African Revolution by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Now, what I decided to do this week, we're going to talk about the war on drugs. We're going to, because my question is, when has the United States ever not been at war? And I want to, if anybody is watching this in the Richmond area, you can call in on our line. The number is 804-646-7172. So, you know, you can call in probably in about 15 minutes, because I want to just share a few things before we start taking calls, if anybody decides to call. But my question is, when has the United States ever not been at war? You know, from day one, they have been at war, right? And so we want to also add a couple of books to the list this week, all right? One of those books we want to add that I think is definitely required reading for everybody. And it's called The Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor Williams. This is the book right here, for those who are on the cable network, and for those who are watching this on YouTube or Facebook. This is the book right here. Hope everybody can see it. Right. And another book that I want to mention before we go into the war on drugs is The Black Holocaust by the late Dale Jones. And this book right here is out of print. And it normally has a red cover on it. So this is like a special edition, I want to say. If you go look for this book online, this particular book sells for about $3,200. A lot of people don't realize how valuable books are, but yeah, once they go out of print, some of them are worth a lot of money. And like I said, go online, look for this book, and you'll see that if you see this in the red cover, yeah, it is about $3,200. So we want to talk about the new Jim Crow. This book by Michelle Alexander. Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow. Okay. Why do I want to talk about the new Jim Crow? Because this book talks about the war on drugs. And the war on drugs basically was a war on the peace movement and the Black family in the United States. And it started in the 60s by Richard Nixon, who is most known by Watergate, the Watergate scandal. But what he really did was something that most people aren't aware of. On August 15th, 1971, he temporarily suspended the convertibility of gold to the dollar, and vice versa. And the main reason why he did that is so they can continue to create cash out of thin air, so they can continue to fund the Vietnam War and the war on the Black family here in the United States under the disguise of a war on drugs. Now, there's a book, another book. I don't have that book, but it's a book called The Dark Alliance by Gary Webb. He documents how the CIA and the government were basically part of the importation of crack cocaine into the communities back in the 80s, and document proof. So why do I say that the war on drugs started in the 1960s? Well, it's because there was a civil rights movement where Black people, African people here in the United States were fighting for civil rights, okay? We wanted to be able to live like normal human beings here in the United States and not be subjected to bias, racist, discriminatory practices that the government basically had been doing ever since we were brought here. With certain places we couldn't live, certain jobs we couldn't have, certain schools we couldn't go to, certain businesses we couldn't own. And so there was a group called the Black Panther Party back in the 60s. And the name of that organization was really the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. So why would we need an organization for self-defense? Because the Black family has been attacked for centuries, okay? But here in the United States, more so, I'd say, than any place else. And I'm going to read something by John Ehrlichman, who was the domestic policy chief for Richard Nixon. He was one of his top aides. And he said the war on drugs was created as a political tool. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies: the anti-war, they say, left, and that's another thing. You know, they want to think that there's a left and a right, but they're basically different sides of the same coin. And so he said that, yeah, the anti-war left and Black people. You understand what I'm saying? This is a quote from John Ehrlichman. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black, but by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin and criminalizing them both heavily, we could disrupt their communities, Ehrlichman said. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, and break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on evening news. Did we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did. So the war on drugs is based on a lie, because at the time that they started the war on drugs use was decreasing. Okay, illegal drug use was decreasing. And I just want to say, for the record, cannabis should have never been, that's another word for marijuana, cannabis should have never been made illegal. Anybody who supports cannabis prohibition, to me, is guilty of a crime against the people and our planet. Because in the book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes by the late Jack Herer, on the back cover, it says that hemp can meet all the world's energy needs, environmentally friendly fuel. And what did the President of the United States just do? He just opened up for more drilling for fossil fuels up in Alaska. Another lie, because he said when he was campaigning that he would not do any more drilling on public land. Well, they're going to start drilling for some oil up in Alaska. Okay, now this is another quote by Aldous Huxley. He said the perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls, in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery, where through consumption and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitude. You see, slavery never ended in the United States. Nope, it never ended in the United States. If you read the 13th Amendment, which most people really have never read, it clearly shows you that in 1865, December the 6th, the 13th Amendment was ratified. And it says, neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except for a punishment for a crime whereof the party should have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place under their jurisdiction. The key word is except. Now there's a documentary called Slavery by Another Name. I think it's on YouTube, you can watch it. And it's going to talk about what we call Black codes. See, right after the Civil War, Southern states got together and came up with what we call Black codes, okay? See, immediately after the Civil War, Southern states enacted Black codes that allowed so-called African Americans certain rights, such as legalized marriage, ownership of some property, limited access to courts, but denied them the right to testify against whites, to serve on juries or in state militias, vote, or start a job without the approval of the previous employer. These codes were repealed in 1866 when Reconstruction began. But after the failure of Reconstruction in 1877, the removal of Black men from political office, Southern states began enacting a series of laws intended to circumscribe the lives of Black people, African people. Harsh contract laws penalized anyone attempting to leave a job before advance had been worked out, called pig laws, unfairly penalized poor Blacks, poor Africans for crimes such as stealing a farm animal, vagrancy status, made it a crime to be unemployed. It was a crime to be unemployed. After several hundred years of 100% employment under the whip, now it's a crime to be unemployed. And any misdemeanor or trivial crime were treated as felons in which harsh sentences and fines. The pig law stayed on the books for decades and were expanded even more discriminatory laws once Jim Crow era began. So what am I saying? What am I saying? I said the war on drugs was really a war on the Black family and a war against the peace movement. Now, right now, the United States is engaged in a war. They're not going to tell you this, but they are really engaged in a war against Russia. They're trying to start a war with China by sending weapons over to Taiwan. Now, think about this. What if Russia decided they want to start sending tanks and weapons over to Hawaii, which is a country that the United States stole also under the threat of genocide, basically. What if the United States was to do that in Hawaii? What would the people think, really? I don't think the United States would like that. But the United States have military bases all throughout Europe, all throughout Africa, all throughout Central America. Everywhere, the United States got military bases. For what? So they can control the resources of the people. I mentioned on the last show that the United States domestic police expenditures is ranked number 3 in the world, behind other countries' military budgets. That's right, the United States spends more money on policing its citizens than most countries spend on their military. But this is supposed to be the land of the free. Well, here's another statistic for you. 1970, right? Guess how many people were in prison in the United States? Less than 200,000 people were in prison in the United States. At the peak of the United States prison population, it was over almost 2.5 million people. Today, in 2023, we got about 2 million people in prison. And we are the world's leading prison population on the planet. More people in prison than China, more people in prison than Russia. See, and you know why that is? It's because over the decades, since the 60s, the United States have been creating laws to target certain groups of people so they can lock them up. Since the 70s, the United States has also been exporting jobs out of the urban areas into other countries. Well, now job opportunities in the urban areas are pretty much non-existent for most people. Most jobs are out in the counties, and here in Virginia, if you don't have transportation, then more than likely you're not going to be able to get anywhere to find employment. And another thing that the United States has done is they started charging for state college education. You know, back in the 50s, you can go to college here in the United States for just about nothing. And that's one of the reasons why China has surpassed the United States pretty much in all areas of technology, because they decided to invest in their population. See, they don't have to pay to go to college. Yeah. They don't have to pay to go to college because they understand that a country needs to invest in their citizens if they want to basically advance and continue to grow, but not here in the United States. And the main reason why the United States don't want to allow free college education or trade school education, because they do not want certain groups of people to become educated so that they can better support their family economically. Yeah. So that's basically my case, that the United States has never been, have never not been at war. They've never not been at war, you know, from day one. Since they first came here, before it was even the United States, they came here to steal the land and the resources. Nobody even talks about the Native Americans, you know, that once lived here, the indigenous population that once roamed this planet. You know, the television that we grew up with made them look like savages. You know, they were the enemy, you know. And when we played Cowboys, Indians, nobody wanted to really be an Indian because we were programmed to think that they were savages, you know. But right now, they got us thinking that Russia is the enemy, that we got to get rid of Putin, you know. They did this with Iraq. They went in Iraq under a lie. Colin Powell basically got in front of the UN and basically lied and said that they had weapons of mass destruction, and they knew they didn't have them, and I knew they didn't have it. Even Saddam Hussein offered to sit down and talk to President Bush. Said, let's talk and discuss this. But President Bush said, we don't have nothing to talk about. You know, they was intent on invading Iraq for the oil. Now look at Libya. What did Obama administration do to Libya? They bombed them to smithereens, saying that the people rose up against them. But I believe that was a CIA operation, just like it was in the Congo with Patrice Lumumba. They took Gaddafi away in a white pickup truck, just like they took Patrice Lumumba away in a pickup truck, and showed how they brutally murdered this man. The people in Libya had the highest standard of living in the continent of Africa. And they didn't have to pay for college. They didn't have to pay for health care. Everybody had a home. There were no people sleeping on the streets. There was no tent cities in Libya, when Muammar Gaddafi was their president. But they painted a picture that he's some evil dictator, you know. Same thing in Cuba. Cubans don't have to pay for education or health care. And based on the numbers, they handled the COVID situation a whole lot better than the United States, even though they didn't have the necessary supplies like syringes, because of this illegal blockade that the United States has imposed upon a country that just wants to simply run a socialist country. You know, the Cuban government even offers U.S. citizens an opportunity to come there and get free medical education where you can become a doctor. Yeah. All you have to do is commit to come back and serve in a low income area in your community once you get your doctor's degree. But now here in the United States, you know, the Rockefeller Foundation took over the medical industry right after they took over the oil industry, and they figured they can make a whole lot more money to keep people sick with pharmaceuticals, and they drastically reduced the amount of medical schools and colleges, and made it a whole lot difficult for people to get become doctors here in the United States. It's so much that we don't know, and it's so much that, you know, a lot of people will never know because we don't read. You know, a lot of people think that television, that's their university. You know, most of the information they get from the television or social media, you know. But I think that a lot of people are starting to realize that something is not right with this system. Something is definitely not right with this system. Take a look at the banking situation that just happened. And I believe it's a deliberate attempt by the United States government to discourage people from getting into the cryptocurrency space. Yeah. Because they're going to roll out this thing called a central bank digital currency. That's going to be programmable money. They want to eliminate cash from the system, you know, paper and coins, and put it on electronic devices so that if you do something the government don't like, they can just cut off your wallet. They can just cut it off, just like that. So if they come out with that digital central bank digital currency, there's going to be less freedoms that we already have been taken away from us. So I had mentioned earlier that this Saturday here at the main library here in Virginia, we're going to have a wealth movement presentation. We're going to be talking about cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, something that I want to highly encourage people to learn about. Educate yourself, okay? Because what you don't know can and will be used against you. And I can't emphasize that enough. So seek knowledge like your life depends on it, really, because it really does. You know, things are going to get a whole lot worse than they already are. Right? They want to bail out those banks, depositors, while at the same time, they're cutting food stamps for people who depend on food stamps to feed their families. They want to send billions of dollars over to Ukraine, while at the same time, people right here are being evicted from their homes, right here in Richmond, Virginia. You know, and it's sad that that's the system that we live under, and people think that this is the best thing going. You know, I saw a meme the other day, and it basically was talking about capitalism, right? Let me try to see if I can find it real quickly, because it makes a lot of sense to me anyway. Here you go, right here. And what it says is that capitalism has told us that the American dream is becoming a mega millionaire or even a billionaire, when the American dream should be collectively building a society where nobody starves or goes homeless, everybody treated equally and fully insured and paid a decent living wage. That's not the case under the system of colonial capitalism. It's not, you know. Capitalism basically is a parasitic system that exploits the land and the labor of everybody involved. You know, most people have been basically conditioned and programmed to think that you're supposed to work 40 years for 40 hours, then somehow survive off of 40% of the income that you barely could live off of while you worked for those 40 years. You know, it's right here in Richmond, Virginia, they're about to close up Tyson's chicken plant. One lady that was on TV said she's been working there for 40 years. The only job she's ever had. And she's like devastated. She doesn't even know, you know, what she's going to do now. Right? So what I'm saying is that you may love your job, but your job doesn't love you. To you, to them, you're just a number. Okay? Because the system is designed for the Wall Street profiteers and the big banks to win, while the average person here struggles. You know, you'll see a few people with a little bit more than you, but the mass of the people on the planet, they don't have much. They don't. But you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that. Not too long ago, there was called this thing called Occupy Wall Street, because people were realizing that there was something really, really wrong with the system that we are under, right? What happened? What happened to the peaceful protests that we were allowed to do? Nope, they shut that down here in the United States too. So you think this is the land of the free? Then ask yourself, why do we have more people in prison than any country on the planet? Because it's not really, it's just an illusion. Like that quote that I read earlier, you know. The perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of a democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls, in which the prisoner would not even dream of escaping, and would essentially be a system of slavery where through consumption, commercials, buy, spend, and entertainment, the slaves would love their servitude. That's right. I know a lot of y'all probably watch the Oscars. Well, I ain't gonna say a lot of y'all. I'm saying some of y'all watch the Oscars. I don't watch them. Okay, I don't watch them. But I saw some pictures of a couple of females on there. It looked basically like they were dressed up to go to the beach, to be nice, dressed up to go to the beach. Because they was basically showing everything in public. And one person particularly, brother from right here in Henrico County, Russell Wilson's wife, you know, all I could do is shake my head. You know, why would you let your wife come out public looking like that, man? It's showing all her body to the world. But like I said, it's highly weird, you know, and it's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there in California. Besides the flooding and the rain and the snow, you know, it's a lot of crazy stuff goes on out there in California. And what they want to do is just entertain us to death. Entertain us to death. So, this book here, The New Jim Crow, by Michelle Alexander. Okay. Remember I said something about the crack epidemic? The timing of the crack crisis helped to fuel the conspiracy theories and general speculation that the poor Black communities, that the war on drugs was part of a genocidal plan by the government to destroy Black people in the United States. From the outset, stories circulated in the streets that crack and other drugs were being brought into the Black neighborhood by the CIA. Eventually, even the Urban League came to take the claims of genocide seriously. In a 1990 report, The State of Black America, it stated, there is at least one concept that must be recognized if one is to see the pervasive and insidious nature of the drug problem for the African American community. Though difficult to accept, this is a concept of genocide. While the conspiracy theories were initially dismissed as far-fetched, it is not downright loony. The word on the street turned out to be right, at least to a point. The CIA admitted in 1998 that guerrilla armies actively supported in Nicaragua were smuggling illegal drugs into the United States. The drugs were making their way in the streets of the inner city Black neighborhoods in the form of crack cocaine. The CIA also admitted that in the midst of the war on drugs, it blocked law enforcement efforts to investigate illegal networks that were helping to fund its covert war in Nicaragua. Oliver North didn't go to jail, but guess what? Thousands of young Black men and women went to jail during the crack era. Yeah, thousands. And what did they do? What did Joe Biden do? What did Bill Clinton do? Well, they came up with their mandatory minimum sentences, where they gave you a whole lot more time for possession of crack cocaine than powder cocaine, so that they can incarcerate young Black men 5 years for 1 gram of crack cocaine. Yeah, 5 years in federal prison. And some of them got a whole lot more than 5 years, you know. Part of the war on drugs. Now that they have this new what they call it, opioid epidemic going on in the United States, that affects another group of people, not us. More so. Now they're looking at ways to provide treatment, treatment, not incarceration. Yeah. So, once again, I just want somebody to let me know, when has the United States not been at war? When? Because, like I said, from day one, they've always been at war. If not at here, then abroad. Yeah. Because sanctions are economic warfare. Yeah. Millions of babies died because of US sanctions in Iraq. They got sanctions on almost half the countries on the planet. The United States have imposed sanctions on them, And the reason why they overthrew Gaddafi is because, one of the reasons, because they had a socialist government. And another reason, because he wanted to sever the ties with the US dollar. Yeah, that's what he wanted to do, and create a gold-backed currency for the continent of Africa to unite. Well, he was not successful in doing that, unfortunately. But not too long ago, Zimbabwe came out with a gold coin. Yeah. And now what we have up and coming is an organization called BRICS. BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. You know what it stands for? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They have been working together to come up with a alternative to the world's current reserve currency, which is the US dollar. Kissinger made a deal back in the day with Saudi Arabia that all their oil would have to be purchased with the US dollar. But because of US sanctions, governments all over the world are getting tired of these sanctions, that's hurting their people more than hurting their government. Because the people in government are going to be okay. It's the people that suffer the most from US sanctions. Okay. Yeah. And so they have formed an alliance. And there are quite a few countries who have applied to join BRICS. Most recently, a government called Mexico wants to join BRICS. And what has the United States, some of the politicians in the United States are saying now? They want to send military down there to do something with the cartels down there. Basically, what they want to do is what they've always been doing. Stopping any country who wants to abandon the dollar. Yeah. And it's the fault of the United States because greed, arrogance. Yeah, because there's enough abundance to go around the whole planet. It is. But the people that run this country are not the politicians. They're the big banks and the Wall Street profiteers. They call the shots. You know, we have an illusion of inclusion when we go out and vote. Because you can just look at the policies and see that they don't care about the average person. They don't. Because if they did, you wouldn't have tent cities. We have enough vacant homes, vacant apartment buildings, vacant office buildings where they could house people. People wouldn't have to sleep in parks in their cars, under bridges and stuff like that. You know, a lot of indigenous Hawaiian people can't even live in their native country because they can't even afford to stay there. They can't even afford to live there. That's how it is under a system called colonial capitalism. Now you'll see scrolling down here at the bottom of the screen for those who are watching this on YouTube or Facebook. We want to invite you to a presentation tonight. Those who do not see that scrolling down on the screen, who are watching this on local cable tonight at 9 p.m. Matter of fact, 6 days a week, 12 noon and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to invite you to a presentation, a Zoom presentation on goldrocks.info. That's gold, GOLDROCKS.info. Just log in there at 9 o'clock tonight so you can learn how to prepare for this central bank digital currency that's coming to take more freedoms away from the US citizen. Yeah. We have a solution for those who want to learn. For those who do not want to learn, who want to continue down the road, so be it. But we are inviting you to learn what we're doing. If you can't make it, that's cool. But I highly encourage that you do. 6 days a week. You know, so you can make excuses. You can say you're too busy, which is fine. But if you're available from Monday through Saturday, 12 noon to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, join us on goldrocks.info. Okay? Goldrocks.info to learn how to prepare for what's coming. The economic system is collapsing because the United States is spending more money on war than on their citizens. And that's one of the reasons why the late Martin Luther King was assassinated, because he brought up that particular scenario, okay, that all this money they're spending over there fighting these wars in Vietnam and Cambodia could be better spent right here building up the inner cities, improving our roads and schools and bridges, providing quality education for the people. But that's not what they want. You see, what good is war? It's no good. You see, war basically is a racket. It is. Where few people are going to make millions of dollars while the masses of people are going to suffer. That's just the way it is. It's always been. And the masses of the people are going to suffer from loss of lives and a loss of land, while a few continue to take millions, continue to make millions and millions of dollars. I'm going to recommend another book. It's a real small book, and it's called War is a Racket by General Smedley Butler. Real thin book, it's still available. It's called War is a Racket. And he basically was a general for the United States Marine. Yeah. He compared the United States military to an international mafia. And that's what they did in South America, Asia, and Africa. They would invade and take and steal the land and resources from people so that the profiteers could make a profit, basically. Yeah. So it looks like we're going to be coming to a close real soon, but I would like to invite y'all to check out our show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on goldrocks.info to learn how to prepare for what's coming. And also, I want to invite you this Saturday, 3 o'clock, 101 East Franklin Street at the main library. We're going to have a wealth movement presentation. Okay. We're going to be talking about blockchain technology and how you can put your family in a position to thrive, strive during these times that's upon us and that's coming. Okay. So just want to encourage y'all to do that. I just want to read this in case y'all didn't hear this in the beginning. Slavery never ended in the United States. It just changed its design. It just changed its form. Because the 13th Amendment clearly states neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime, whereas the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Which means that once you're incarcerated here in the United States, you're not a slave. And that's why the United States is the world's leading jailer. More people in prison than any country on the planet. And they're in prison. A lot of prisons are using prison labor to manufacture goods that's sold to the general population. Look up a company called Unicor. Unicor. All right. Unicor makes parts for military equipment in the federal penitentiaries. Yeah, you have prisoners making military parts for the military. They make beds and furniture for government. So when you have prison labor that's doing work that people on the outside could be doing, What does that do? That keeps the wages down for the workers because they can pay these prisoners 10 cents an hour. 10 cents an hour. Yeah. They even have inmates in California fighting fires. But when they get out of prison, they can't even get a job being a firefighter, even though while they was in prison, they were basically firemen. Yeah. Something is definitely not right with the system that we have here, you know. And we just want to encourage you, highly encourage people to pick up a book and read. I want to encourage you to read and educate yourself. Like I said, knowledge is the treasure, but it becomes ignorance when not practiced. And anything that you don't know can and will be used against you. And I can't emphasize that enough. So seek knowledge like your life depends on it. Because it really does. It really does. You know, there was once a law in the United States that made it illegal for Africans here in the United States to read. And there's an old saying that if you want to hide something from a Black person, simply put it in the book. Well, we want to encourage you to change that and seek knowledge. Open up books. Encourage your children to read. You see, the school system, which was also created by the Rockefellers, was not designed to educate us. It was only simply designed to train us to become good, obedient workers because of the Industrial Revolution, and they needed obedient factory workers. Think about how the school is structured, where you have to be there early in the morning. The bell rings, you go to lunch. Back in my day, the bell would ring to go to lunch. You know, I don't know if that's still the case today. But yeah, it was just set up like a factory. You sit at the desk in a row, just like in a factory, you know. And yeah, so the school system is not designed to educate you. Your education must come outside of the school. It must come from outside the school system. If you really want knowledge, that's where you must seek it. It only trains you to become a worker, to get a job. Now, I'm not knocking the job. Don't think I'm knocking anybody's job. But what I am saying is a job should not have to last you 40 years for you to get free. And when I say free, means that you are able to be self-sustaining without depending on somebody to write you a paycheck. Freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, and time freedom. Time freedom is the most important freedom that you can have, but you can't have it without financial freedom. So we want to educate you. We want you to educate yourself on economics and how to grow your money, how to put it to work for you so that you don't have to work for it until you can't work anymore. That's what we want to show you how to do tonight at 9 or 6 days a week at 12 noon and 9 p.m. on goldrocks.info. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. We'll be back again next week, next Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We got, I think, two more programs to do here at the Richmond Public Access Television Studio. So we'll be back again next week. And we're gonna be talking about the economy. We're gonna focus on the economy because in the book that I shared last week by Dr. Floyd Anderson, Powernomics, the first step is economic empowerment. So how we do that We got to learn what money is, how money works. Yeah, that's what we have to do. Remember, the US dollar became a fiat currency in 1971, August the 15th. Okay. It's no longer backed by gold like it once was. And that's when the hyperinflation really began. And the dollar has been losing its value rapidly ever since. Right now, we're in a hyperinflation like never before. The dollar is going to be losing and losing more value. So it's going to take us more dollars to live on this planet than ever before. We want to get you in a place where you're going to be, money will not be a problem anymore. That's where we want to get you. Yeah. So that you don't have to be begging. You don't have to be depending on Social Security because that might not be here forever. And we know it probably won't be. You don't have to depend on your family and friends to take care of you. You don't have to depend on donations. We want to put you in a place of economic freedom, location freedom, and the most important, time freedom, so that you can do things that's more important than spending 40 years working on a job that you don't like and don't really like you. Look what they did to the people at Tyson here in Glen Allen and Racket County. They're going to be shutting down May 23rd. So if you know anybody in the Richmond area that was working at Tyson's, tell them, come on out Saturday so we can show them a way to put their money to work for them so they don't have to go look for another job. Okay. Or tune in tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that you can learn how to put your money to work for you instead of having to work for money until you can't work anymore. You don't want to end up, and I'm not knocking people who have to go back to work, but you don't want to end up retiring, then have to go back to work. You know, the purpose of retirement is so that you can spend time doing things that you enjoy doing. Now, if you don't love your job, then you're not enjoying your life. Like I say, I'm not knocking a job, but there is a better way. And the school system is not going to teach you that. So, like I say, the United States has been at war since day one. And war is a racket. Yeah. There was an old song by Marvin Gaye. Yeah, I remember that song. It was called sorry about that. That was my guest that was supposed to be here today and didn't show up. I don't know what happened, but I'll call him in a few minutes once we get off this air. So we're going to sign off here on YouTube. We'll be back again next week, same time, same channel. Sign off here on Facebook. And until next time, peace, power,